when something would happen to me that I couldn't explain, I would be completely terrified. So even if it wasn't anything bad, my fear of the unknown would kick in.
Welcome to the Occult Theater Podcast. Whether you are new to the paranormal or have had your share of experiences, we ask that you keep an open mind, embrace your curiosity, and explore the unknown with us. It's time to gather around the campfire.
Basically, I got four other siblings and my parents. Everybody else is not home. I go to school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I leave for school, for context, there's a crawl space behind my bed, and I was staying in an upstairs bedroom, and so it's closed. The crawl space, there's nails over it. Like even if it was something supernatural, you got to be a strong ass ghost. So I leave for school. I take the bus. Everyone else driving bus. So I get off, walk home because it's downtown Grayton. It doesn't go up to my house. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna get home and chill, watch some cartoons, and not do homework till my parents get home. No, okay. I get into my bedroom and I see that the crawl space nails are like turned and the crawl space is open, and it's just pitch black inside. And I just remember I just remember closing my door, running downstairs, and hiding in the living room until my parents came home. And this wasn't just then. Like, that was never explained. Nobody was home. Nobody could have been coming home, really, I don't think. And why would anyone leave it open? But,
Yeah, that's a little weird.
yeah. And so
Very weird.
it was a common occurrence because I have a lot of anxiety and I'm a baby.
Yeah.
So it was a common occurrence for me to like it's a common memory of me just like hiding in the living room,
Yeah.
below the window, on the couch, just like below the window because when it got dark,
Oh my God. I
my
couldn't do
parents
it.
weren't playing, sometimes.
I would leave.
Right?
I would
didn't
wait
have anywhere to
outside.
go to. I'm a teenager in the middle of the woods. Like, where am I gonna go? To the cemetery down the road? Yay.
Yes.
Well,
So that was scary, your little incident.
it wasn't like the only time in that house that something spooky happened.
Oh.
So back in 2005, I was 15. I was living with my parents, and my stepdad was out of town at the time. My mother and I would generally sleep in the living room. I would sleep on the love seat, and she would sleep on the couch, angled into the corner of the wall. I was able to see her perfectly and wake her up if I needed something. We did this just to be safe because of certain activity that would occur when my dad was away. One night, we were watching The Lord of the Rings. I watched those movies all the time back then, still do. I remember it was between 12 and 3 a.m. maybe. I was a night owl, and so was my mom. I was also homeschooled, so bedtimes, they weren't really a thing for me. In Florida, it's generally really warm. Surprisingly, though, I believe it was 45 degrees outside, which was cold for Florida. I enjoyed it. I was curled up under my Pirates of the Caribbean flannel blanket, watching this movie with my mom, when something terrifying happened. We had these closet doors that were kind of old. The doors on our closets were probably made around the time our house was built, which was, I believe, sometime in the early 60s. Anyways, in order for you to open them up, they would fold out, and when you closed them, they would go flat. They were on a track. So when you open them, they did make some noise, more so than the normal bedroom door. All of a sudden, these closet doors throughout my entire house started to violently open and close, open and close. This went on for about 2 minutes straight. I remember, clueless, staring at my mother, who was also hearing it. Back then, I wasn't really comfortable with the unknown and paranormal. While I did love it and still enjoyed the ghost stories, when something would happen to me that I couldn't explain, I would be completely terrified. So even if it wasn't anything bad, my fear of the unknown would kick in, and I would go into fight or flight mode. This time, though, I just sat there like a deer in the headlights. It was happening so fast, and it was so loud, and I couldn't think. I couldn't hear myself think or my thoughts. I looked at my mom. I was terrified, and I asked, "Mom, what is this? What's happening? I'm scared." My mom just looked at me, not trying to ignore me, but trying to focus on the sounds. She was listening. She put her finger up to tell me to hold on a second. So I waited, impatiently, shaking, bouncing my leg up and down. "Mom, what is that?" She sat there, her eyes darting back and forth, trying to collect her thoughts. She told me she wasn't sure, but to stay where I was sitting. We both sat there for a moment, and it suddenly stopped. It went dead quiet, like it had never happened. My movie, it was still playing in the background, and I began to collect myself. I remember exhaling with relief. I don't know if I was breathing much while that was all occurring. And I remember when I was starting to ask my mom, "Hey, what do you think that The doors, they started up again. It was so loud. No one else was in this house, and we had no pets at the time. Our home was small, so we could see just about all the parts of the house, and nothing could explain this. I started to shake. I looked at my mom. She was scared like me, but also frustrated. My mom slowly stood up, quietly. She was going going to try and catch whatever this was in the act. She told me, stay here, just stay still on the couch, and that I'll still be able to see her walking down the hallway. I wasn't okay with this really, but I remember I didn't know what else to do, so I just sat there. She walked down the hallway, and I took out my switchblade in case the worst happened. Just as she was approaching the bathroom, I remember the closet door in the hallway suddenly stopped opening and closing. And as she approached the office, the closet door in there slowly stopped. As she progressed further down the hallway, the closet doors she approached stopped, one by one. Finally, reaching the bedrooms, one bedroom door, which was mine, was open, and the closet door had already stopped making noise. But in her room, the master bedroom, the door was shut. They generally kept this door shut anyways. But the closet door in there was still making noise. My mom put her hand on the door handle. She sat there for a moment and took a breath and swung the door open violently, trying to catch whatever it was in the act. But it stopped. Of course it stopped. Whatever this was, it was playing with us. I looked down the hall at my mom. I could see part of her standing in the bedroom and the other part of her still in the hallway. She was just peeking in, had the light turned on in the bedroom as well. Mom? What is it? Did you see anything? Did you see anything at all? I kept asking her, begging her for an answer. She just said there was nothing in there. She's no idea what it was, and she doesn't know why it kept happening. She shut the door to her bedroom, as it was, made sure all the lights were out again. She walked back into the living room and sat down on the couch where she was originally laying. She looked at me, and I remember she looked concerned, but my mom, she was extremely religious and still is, so she, of course, told me to pray. She wasn't sure what it was, but a lot of times she feared the worst. So, and I started to pray in my own way. I was so terrified. We continued our night. We still slept on the couches, of course, in the living room. We let the movie play. I eventually fell asleep.
Now, I believe this went on for maybe a few months. Every once in a while. Sometimes twice a week, sometimes once a week. Sometimes it was only once or twice a month. But I know this kept going on. And each time it did, I didn't feel any better about it. It just made me more confused, frustrated, that I couldn't control what was happening. It was something.
classic one. The best way I can explain it is, you know how your eyes adjust to the dark? And
Yes.
so sometimes you think you're seeing things?
Yes.
Well, I already told you that the freaking, the granny unit that was haunted near my room. So I
Yeah.
remember having huge fear of the dark, and like, so I had to sleep in the dark, of course, or whatever. My parents are gonna pay for the electricity all day because they're scared.
Oh my god.
But I do remember just like seeing things in the dark.
I was lucky. My mom let me have lights on when I go to bed. Like, door cracked open, if I wanted it open,
Oh, I
lights
had a
on.
nightlight. That was about it.
So when I'm with someone, I'm okay to sleep in the dark. Like, I don't get as scared. But sometimes if it's pitch black and I can't see my own hands in front of me, I have this feeling of like suffocating. I feel like I can't breathe, and I have no concept of space, and I start to panic. So I can't really be in the dark if I'm with someone or not. Like, it just makes me freak out.
Especially when you get to the pitch black, you can't even see like in front of you. No, thank you.
Nope. Nope.
That's
Nope.
where the
Nope.
ghosties live. Okay.
Yep, that exactly. And if it's not a ghost, it's my mind trying to make me think there is, and that's just as bad to me. So
Yeah.
that's why I cover my face when I go to sleep. So if I wake up and like, even if it's scientifically explained, like, oh, I'm dreaming and I'm in sleep paralysis, I don't want to see something my brain's gonna come up with because my brain is
Oh,
weird.
sleep
So
paralysis. Ugh.
mhm.
Our next guest takes us to Hawaii with a story about a creature you probably wouldn't expect to be in Hawaii.
So this is my friend Nathan with a little bit of a spooky tale.
Well, so the thing is I've thought about this for 15 years, and I've noticed that a lot of like esoteric, like weird, spooky stuff is like it translates across the globe, and I've been across the globe, and I just watched one of my favorite like YouTube guys this morning actually. And he was talking, like, there's about these gnomes. And these gnomes, like, wear red hats. These tall red hats and stuff. And it's all about England, But there's another group of small people that also wear red pointy hats that are in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So when I was 18, I moved to Hawaii. And after I got off the airport, this cab driver, I gave him the address, and we went down to where I gave him my brother's address. And I got at the end of his driveway, and I hiked down into this jungle, and I was like literally in the middle of nowhere. There was no one around. And it was hot, so I took off my shirt. It was an Oakland A's shirt. And I put it over my head so I could go to sleep.
Yeah.
When I woke up, the shirt was stolen. I worked in a kitchen for a while, and this older Hawaiian woman told me, oh, it's a menehune stole your shirt. And she told me about how the menehune stole jewelry out of her drawer all the time. And I was like, okay, whatever.
Menehune?
Yeah, menehune.
Menehune.
Menehune. And so then I moved from Haiku, this was in Maui. I moved from Haiku to Makawao. Then I moved up a little bit.
How long ago was this?
Well, so this was 18 years ago.
18.
Yeah, and so I was living, so my brother was, and still is, like a really well-established woodworker in Maui. and we found these older guys. They were about like 10 years or 20 years older than us. I was 21 at the time, so my brother would have been 31. And we got this really, really awesome, like Austin Powers bachelor mansion, you know, like on the side of this cliff in Hawaii. It was super awesome. One night, we all had this dinner, and our roommates were talking to us about, like, oh, back in, like, 1970, blah, 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 like, when I was surfing over on this island, and I saw the Menehune and stuff, and after we got done through dinner, my brother and I went out to go smoke cigarettes, and we just basically were laughing at them, like, and we shouldn't have laughed at them because I've experienced, like, weird stuff, and my brother's experienced weird stuff. So we shouldn't have been laughing at them, but we just got done hearing these guys talk about the Menehune, you know, like these elves, like gnomes. So we were totally laughing about them.
Yeah.
And we went outside, and we were just laughing, and then all of a sudden we started hearing this giggling. And we looked over in this flower bush, and there was a man and a woman. They were about 2.5 foot tall. They wore these red pointy hats, and they had their hands over their mouths, and they were laughing at us. And we looked over at them, and they laughed, and they just, like, ran away, like, straight up like the Wizard of Oz, like the Munchkin Land. Like, they were laughing at us, and they ran away. And I was like, okay, now I believe it. But I want to give, like, a basis for this story, too.
Yeah.
Because a couple weeks before that happened, my brother showed me this swimming pool, and he showed me that there was a waterfall, and he showed me that there was a cave that led up behind the waterfall, like, so where you could go and you could collect water if you wanted to. And we were crawling through it, and I'm like, okay, why would you dig a hole through this lava rock that is so small?
Yeah.
Because, like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, swinging a pickaxe, it just doesn't make sense. And then yesterday morning, I decided to watch some videos about the Menehune,
Yes.
and it said that they actually created a lot of, like, caves and stuff. And so I'm like, all of this makes sense. All of this makes sense. So that's just, like, it's one of those weird things where you've got two people who are laughing, not believing in, like, the ethereal or the other world, and then just having it pointed in their face. This guy that I've been watching for about 1.5 years now, when he posted this video about this gnome in England, like, it was the same thing. Like, this was back in, like, I think the 1800s or something, but there was this, like, girl, and there was, like, a gnome with a red pointy hat, like, giggling, and then ran away, and I'm like, oh my god, that's exactly what fucking happened to me, and I just think it's so weird that happened, you know, to someone in the 1800s in England, and that also happened to me, you know, in the 2000s in Hawaii. But it's not that weird because I lived in Arizona for 10 years, and I worked in a Native American jewelry gallery, and it took a really long time. I worked there for about 6 years, but after a few years, the Navajo started to trust me. Normally, they don't speak about certain things, and they don't speak it even amongst themselves, but they definitely don't speak it to, like, white people like me, you know, or outsiders. But the thing is like, the reason they don't speak it is because when you talk about it, that's when they come out.
Yep.
And
Acknowledge them.
And this morning, I also watched a video about an elder Hawaiian guy who was listening to another elder Hawaiian woman talking about the Menehune, and then he saw the Menehune. And it reminds me of every culture across the globe. There's, like, a boogeyman that you don't talk about, because if you talk about it, they show up.
Yep.
So everything is connected, and I just think about how crazy it is that the gnomes with the pointy red hats, the Menehune with the pointy red hats, these tiny little people with pointy red hats, like,
Yeah.
all of that is connected. They hide in the bushes, you know, they giggle, they have a sense of humor, they like to steal things. And look at this. All over the world, thousands of years ago, before people even knew about each other, before Asia knew about Central America, right? Before they ever were able to communicate, what do we have? Pyramids and serpent gods. We all have pyramids and stone-carved serpent gods and pyramids all over the world. All over the world. Europe, Asia, South America, all over the world. Before people were even communicating with each other. So, you can call it supernatural. You can say that they physically saw that. Or you can look at it from a metaphysical point of view. Or you can look at it as a sociological, psychological point of view where there was like a mass psychosis or something. But either way, I find it really interesting. So I really think, regardless of if you believe in the boogeyman or the ghosts or whatever, I think that everyone should find it interesting that there was a time in humanity where there was no communication, but we all saw the same thing. So what is that? So if you don't want to look at it from a spiritual point of view or whatever, we should look at it from a historical, psychological point of view. Like, we shouldn't just discredit it. We shouldn't just be like, oh, they saw dragons, they saw demons. It's like, well, wait a minute. They all saw dragons and demons. So, like, what does that say? We're not saying that it's literal, but can we at least look at it metaphysical? Like, acknowledge it.
I'm glad that we've got you, and I freaking know you, because it's like, that's kind of what this podcast is about, from what I've noticed so far.
Yeah.
Is like, that's what we want to do, is we want to bring people together, share the stories, because it's like, even if you don't think it's real or not, it happens. People see things, you know?
Wow. That was an amazing story. And it's true, it's strange how so many things seem to be connected and are similar throughout history, even before we had electricity to communicate or ways to travel overseas. There are lots of similarities, and it's so intriguing. I love it.
I woke up one morning, or it was like a nap, I can't remember which. But I woke up in my bed, and I couldn't move.
Oh my god, I hate that.
I could experience everything.
In your studio?
No, this was way back when I was a
Oh,
teenager.
that's right.
Back with the crawl space.
Crawl space. You were in your bedroom.
I was probably a total teen, like maybe 13 or whatever. I can't remember. Happened. Luckily, I don't think. Maybe I'm blocking it out.
Maybe.
But I just remembering the crawl space being open and the fact that I couldn't move and that like something could happen, and I was like, yeah. Luckily,
No,
I managed to be able to move after a while, but that freaked me out.
If that happens again, especially because you live alone, just don't open your eyes until you can move. Because
I won't.
don't. Just close your eyes, cover your face when you sleep, something. Because
I hear things at night. I remember the dream, but it was not a good dream, and I was freaking out. And I remember this was a while back, 2-3 years ago, same place here. But I remember screaming for my mom, just yelling, "Mom!" guttural, like, "Mom!" right? And I woke up, and I swear that I was still yelling it while waking up.
Yeah.
So, like, because I remember that's kind of like the first sound I heard was me yelling. Just last Mom. Like, that's, I just remember hearing that. And I remember sitting there in bed, like, freaked out, probably because of the dream, and then also, what's reality now?
Yeah.
So I would just sit there like, what the fuck? What is going on? Am I awake? Am I not?
Oh,
is
I
my
hate
mom
that.
here, please?
Help me, mommy.
Oh, my mom's hardcore. She'll be there for me, but my mom would be like, "You got this."
My mom calls me at like 3 a.m. to tell me she saw a ghost, and I'm like, go to bed. She's just like, no, you don't understand. I just want to make sure you're okay because like my family's like comes from like the old world kind of like, you know, Jewish, Middle Eastern, lots of like gypsy Romani kind of legend stuff and curses and ghosts and like that's like my whole family's life. And so like my mom, it's completely normal for her to call me at 3 a.m. to be like, "Are you okay? I just saw like a David or a ghost just run through and it said your name." And I'm like, "Oh God, mom, I'm fine. I'm just asleep." Sometimes this shit is just a nightmare. Like it's not all bad. Like I
Yeah.
have, if it was all bad, I'd be in trouble because I have like nightmares every other night. So
Thank you, Cheska and Nathan, for that amazing interview. Nathan, I loved your story so much. I want to hear more. I know you have a lot to give, and I also, too, had an experience with a gnome before. That's a story for another time, but yeah, definitely, they are tricky, they are pranksters, and it doesn't surprise me that you saw them laughing. It's definitely something those beings would do. So, thank you so much.